I'm going to show you how I go about removing a pump tube, removing the NRV that's rounded over, and put it all back together so it works. The first step here is to get the dirt out of these stove legs. The stove legs will hold the heat and make it difficult to keep them from falling off when I actually start the soldering operation. You can see all the dirt that was in there. Here I put paper toweling in the legs. I'm going to saturate that so it stays nice and wet. Won't allow the leg to melt off. And this is a tool using an old pump cap with just a bolt and some nuts that I use to hold on to the pump tube and pull it out of the stove. Here I'm saturating that paper toweling one more time before I do the operation to make sure it's good and wet. That will keep the pot leg support leg from overheating and just falling off the stove when the solder melts. It keeps the solder from melting. The torch I'm using is a Bernzomatic TS4000. They also make a fourth TS8000. That's another good torch to use. I'm using MAP gas, but you could use propane just fine too. The idea is that this produces a lot of intense heat in a short period of time. By producing a lot of heat, you can turn off the torch, do a little work, turn off, start it up again, turn off the torch, do a little more work. Just giving just enough heat so that you don't melt anything you don't want to melt. The problem with taking pump tubes, especially on older stoves, out of the stove is that they often have a lot of incrustation just inside the body of the stove around the tube, and so that tube is going to have a hard time sliding out that narrow opening. The solder here was molten but then hardened up again, so now I'm adding a little more heat and finally working its way out. A little wiggling and pulling. And there comes a tube. A little spritz of water brings that temperature down so I don't have any seams or pot legs falling off of the stove. You can see some of that incrustation there on the tube. Here's the tube removed from the stove. And a look at the other end of the NRV there. There's that incrustation I was mentioning. Makes it tough to get it out the opening. A little coil, a penetrant, helps me remove the bottom part of the NRV. You can see that the pip actually deteriorated and clogged that opening on the NRV. Here I'm going to go ahead and remove the base of the pump tube. And it comes right off with a little heat. That's what it looks like afterwards. You can see that the head of the NRV is well rounded. It's not looking very happy. So I removed the pump tube base from the NRV head, and here I'm using the lathe just to hold everything stationary while I chase the threads with a proper tap, just to make sure the threads are cleaned up for the future. Here it is all ready to go with the old head and the new NRV that's going to go in there. And here I've cleaned up the solder with a little faurot steel wool. I'm doing the same thing on the pump tube base, getting everything ready to go so I can do the soldering operation. Put it together here with some flux. I'm going to show you how to flux it here. This is just off the shelf, rosin-based plumber's flux. Works great for this sort of thing. I apply it with a small artist brush, just to get a thin layer on both parts. Flux acts to keep the metal of the solder and also any exposed brass clean during the heat of the soldering operation. Okay, ready to solder here, firing up the torch. The nice thing about these torch heads is that they have a piezoelectric start, so they're easy to start, quick and easy, very simple. I'm looking to heat that up until I see the solder that's already on the parts liquefy, and it has now. And now I'm just working on an adjustment. When it was put together, there were some lumps of solder that were putting it off center. The pump tube base was off center on the tube. So here I'm just trying to get it kind of centered before I apply new solder to it. It's about hot enough, so I'll just, oops, don't do that. Yeah, here's what you do. Go ahead and get it hot and then just dab on a little solder. You shouldn't be putting the torch onto the solder that you're adding, only getting it hot and then adding solder to the joint. So it's basically torch on, torch off, solder on, solder off, and that's the operation you follow. Heating it up a little bit allows the solder to flow around, and again, I'm just manipulating it here to get it centered nicely. So after I soldered it, I want to make sure the joint is clean and appropriate. Solder's everywhere. I cleaned it up a little 4/0 steel wool so that I can inspect the joint and make sure that I have uniform solder joint all the way around, no gaps, no holes. Taking some more of that 4/0 steel wool, I clean up the scale on the tube, and then I mask the parts I don't want solder on with some India ink and a small brush. In addition to the paper toweling in the pot leg, I also have some wet paper toweling in the very bottom of the pump tube so that that pump base doesn't come off. I've already fluxed this joint and put it together here, and it's all ready to go. I'm heating it now, and once it gets hot, I'm going to make sure that the solder kind of grips it. You can kind of see it just got liquid and then gripped it. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a little solder to make sure I've got enough flowing around the entire joint. The surface tension of the solder holding the joint usually holds it there okay without having to have me hang on to it, so I don't need 3 hands. Add a little more solder so it flows completely around the joint and leaves me with a nice look. A little spritz of water brings that temperature down just enough so that I'm not going to have that pot support leg fall off. So after some cleanup with a brass bristled brush to remove the flux, a little 4/0 steel wool, just a rag to kind of polish it out a little bit and see what it looks like. I'm inspecting here to make sure I have no gaps in the solder and there are no holes or cracks through which I could get air leaks. And here's the stove put together and functioning, burning kerosene. There were no air leaks around the pump when I checked it in a basin of water. And now I've fueled the stove and I'm just running it for the enjoyment of seeing blue flames. And if you enjoy blue flames, you'll enjoy them too. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it helps you in your stove repair or restoration work. If you have questions, you're welcome to contact me through my YouTube site or through my website, BernieDawg.com. Thanks for watching.